Hello there, Guildies. This is the Adventurers Guild. I'm Steve.
I'm still Jesse.
Comic books are not video games. We usually talk about video games on this channel, but we're going to change it up a little bit for this video and talk about something else that's super nerdy and also very near and dear to our hearts.
Yay!
Comic books. I read comic books growing up as a child nonstop. Jesse still reads comic books
I still do.
nonstop. So he is going to show us some of his favorites from his collection
They are
today.
my favorites. I hold them so dear.
So let's get right into it with Jesse's comic collection.
Are we cutting away from music?
We weren't.
All right, to get into it. So the first one I want to show, I hope that didn't go off on the mic, is called Death in the Family. You can see it over here. Terrifying.
This one I am familiar with. I've never read it, but I remember when this came out.
Really?
I think.
Okay.
Go into detail, and I'm going to see if it's the one I think
So,
it is.
Death in the Family, if anybody is a huge Batman fan, was a famous comic book where they killed off the second Robin, Jason Todd.
Okay, it is what I thought it was.
This is actually not that one. This is the New 52 launch of it.
Oh, okay.
So they did another story called Death in the Family. I do not want to ruin it, but it is an amazing story. It does involve Joker and the Bat family.
Okay.
It's so good. I can't recommend. This is probably my new comic or my new favorite comic of all time, and it's part of the New 52, which I thought was a spectacular run where DC did a soft reboot of their characters.
Awesome.
Made them all young again.
So that's an anthology one, obviously.
Yes,
So
that's-
how many issues are in that book?
I say it's 4 to 5 issues on each anthology, depending.
So pretty typical.
Yep. I'm sticking with Batman for a minute. This is a real world series that came out. I don't know if Steve's going to do a zoom on this. This is called Real World Batman.
We are going to place pretty superimposed pictures over top of the video.
Basically, DC did a run where they talked about how heroes would actually exist in the real world. So this is a depiction of Batman as a middle-aged, mentally challenged black man that works as a janitor. And
Wow, that is a lot of things.
it is. But he ends up becoming Batman in the story, and I don't want to ruin it, like I said, but it is an incredible read, emotional too. And the Robin and Joker in the story, because it has all the characters in it, are incredible.
So, did you... Oh, wow. That's cool. That's cool cover art. So, did you read mostly DC comics growing up, or was it a fair share of Marvel and DC both?
It's actually fun. I actually read mostly Marvel growing up, because I was a huge Spider-Man fan.
But you flipped.
Yeah, probably around late teenage years, early 20s, I got super into DC. Around Infinite Crisis, I got really into DC. Bam! This is one of my favorite joke stories. It's a really famous comic book. It's called The Killing Joke. It focuses on Joker, gives him an origin story, if that. But does really. Maybe it does. Who knows? I don't know. If you like the movie Dark Knight, they took a lot of inspiration from this book. So, Alan Moore.
Completely unrelated, but one of my favorite video games of all time is a Sierra Online game called Quest for Glory. Mm-hmm. And in Quest for Glory 4, the narrator was John Rhys Davies. Obviously, very famous actor, played Gimli, blah, blah, blah. There's a mechanic in that game where you can tell people the ultimate joke. It reminds me of Killing Joke. But every time you say, you use the ability in the game called Tell Ultimate Joke, John Rhys Davies comes on and goes, "You tell the ultimate joke about the wizard and the farmer's daughter. Ha ha ha, it's a killer." Anyway. It just made me think of that for some reason.
I have, and I'm going to show these two at the same time, because they're both not my favorite reads, but they're both very important to the comic world, so I'm glad I own both of them. So this one's called Batman, Son of the Demon. For any huge Batman fans, this was actually the conception of Damian Wayne, which was Bruce Wayne's son in the comics, and who eventually became Robin. And then for anybody that read the Batman 66 reissue, you eventually know he becomes Batman Damian. But this is actually when he was conceived, is in this story. So it's a Ra's al Ghul story, Natalia Ghul, and Batman story. So it's really good. It's not my favorite read, but it's just a really neat comic to own.
How many people have become Robin in the comic book series? I thought it was...
So many. You have Dick Grayson, Jason Todd.
Those are the ones anybody we're most familiar with.
Tim Drake, Carrie Kelly.
Oh, wow, okay. So
Damian Wayne.
I didn't realize there were so many Robins, okay.
Spoiler for a minute. Also, this is one, I hope Steve is able to show the art, because the art is absolutely beautiful for this. I'll give Steve a little look at it.
Oh.
So this is the Arkham Asylum book.
Oh, this is a very different art style, actually.
Yes.
Wow, this is really interesting. Okay.
This is actually what the Arkham games are based off of.
Oh, okay.
So I thought that was a really neat one to bring in. So I'll show you the cover of that one. But there is a picture of Joker in this that is enough to scare the bejesus out of anybody. It's an incredible, if you can ever look at the art for this one. So that's one. So this is one Marvel I brought in. I do own a couple Marvels, but this is my favorite. I think Steve might get a kick out of this. Boom! The first ever Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes, before the one.
Look at Yondu, man.
The original squad, before the MCU version before the Star-Lord version,
Yep.
and Gamora and them.
So I haven't had this since I was a kid, but I did get this before the movie came out. I was ended up being at a flea market. I remember reading Guardians as a kid, so I picked it up.
That's awesome.
This is before the movie came out, so it just happened to work out because I think it's probably worth a little more now that the movies have taken off. But
I'll tell you what, comic book values are so strange. What ones are worth a lot and which ones aren't?
So usually it's the debut of a character
Right.
makes a lot, and then first prints always make.
But then you have the things where like everyone in the universe owns. Well, I mean, obviously this is hyperbole, but a ridiculous amount of people own the still sealed copy of The Death of Superman.
Yeah,
because, oh man, I remember when that came out. Superman died. Oh, you can't believe it. Superman's dead. It's going to be worth so much money. Blah, 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 blah. They made I think it was 17.4 trillion prints of that.
Yeah, it was a ridiculous amount.
So it's worth nothing because everyone owns it.
Yeah, so usually if you look up comic prices, debuts of characters are always worth more than actual strong crazy issues. The first issue of Guardians of the Galaxy, which is worth a decent amount, is actually worth less than the introduction of Rocket, which was an Incredible Hulk comic. So that comic's actually worth more money because it introduced Rocket the Raccoon. So these next books I wouldn't say are all my favorite, but I think they're really neat for the channel to show. So anybody remember there was a recent Power Ranger movie that came out a couple years ago?
Yes, most people are aware of that.
Due to financials.
Most cool people.
Yeah, financials, we're never going to get a sequel, which is a shame. I thought it was great. But they did make a sequel in comic form. So I brought that in today.
Cool. You know, what's funny is I have a lot of Power Rangers comics, the Boom series. Oh, that is Boom comic, actually. And I did not know there was a sequel series to that.
Yeah, so it was a sequel comic. I picked it up just because how much I really liked the movie. It actually leaves on a cliffhanger. I don't know if I've never been able to find another issue, but it was really cool because it started dealing with altered dimensions, so it got really neat.
Looking at the cover of this, I'm already interested.
Yes, this is one of my favorite things. DC and Power Rangers link up. Look at the back, man. It's the freaking Justice League fighting on the Megazord. So
I hope this comic is better than the crossover episode on TV of the Power Rangers and the Ninja Turtles.
It definitely is. So due to events I won't get into because it's a really good read, the Justice League universe and the Power Ranger universe links over. It is the original OG Power Rangers team, and I will just ruin one part of the comic that's in the beginning. Batman shows up and single-handedly takes out the entire Power Ranger team. And they all, at this point, think he's a monster by Lord Zed. It's just a powerful monster. And when Zach realizes that he's a human being, he loses all confidence in himself. But it's an incredible read. And then the last one, they actually made a movie on this, an animated one, but I think it's really neat. Another crossover, it was Batman and the Ninja Turtles, which was also better than
the crossover
for Power Rangers.
No, but you said when you realized he was a human being, he's Kryptonian. So he's not actually a human being.
It was Batman, not Superman.
Oh, Batman.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said Superman.
No, Batman's the one that takes out the
entire.
entire.
Okay.
And he does the same thing to this one. Actually, he takes out all four turtles. And this comic, if you ever get a chance to read it, is just worth it for the fight between Batman and Shredder. Oh, unbelievable!
That right there, I think you sold me on it just there.
And one more bonus.
We have a bonus.
If anybody is a fan of Gravity Falls like I am,
great show.
That you got obsessed with the show.
Absolutely great
they
show.
They released an accompanying book. Boom! This is the actual journal from the show. What's neat is it has all this extra, but if you take I'm getting really nerdy now. You take the sleeve off, it's the actual book from the show.
That's so cool.
It is. And what I really like about it is it's after Mabel and Dip got the book, so it has notes in it, written by Dipper in it. which is really neat. So anybody who's a big fan of the show, I highly recommend this book. I think I picked it up for a decent price too. Can't remember now. I think it was around 30, but it was worth every penny. So that's not. I got tons of comics, but those were just some of the fun ones I decided to share today.
So I'm going to throw a question at you.
Yes, I'm ready for it.
This is. I did not prepare you for this one. All right, so you're going to have to think on your feet. Okay. So for someone who is a novice, but is a like a aficionado of all things nerdy, okay? If you wanted today to get into comic book collecting, where do you start?
Oof, that's a tough one. DC or Marvel?
Let's just say the person likes DC.
I would highly recommend the new 52 issues of any of the new 52 run of comics. So for anybody who doesn't know what the new, because I do mention that all the time in the channel,
Right.
DC kind of hit it ends, and they did what was called the Infinity Crisis series, and at the end of it, it kind of rebooted the entire franchise, and they all went back to issue 1. So you had Batman #1 again, Action Comics #1, Detective Comics #1. So I think if somebody wanted to get into DC Comics, that'd be the perfect way to introduce yourself to the character.
See, I feel like a lot more people would be into comic book collecting.
Mm-hmm. If they knew where to start.
Exactly, because comic collecting is so complicated. Because not only do you have issues where there's multiple versions of the same or similar character across multiple types of comics,
multiverse,
but then you have issues where you have a persistent character who happens to cross over into a comic series for a few episodes that you're not reading, and then it goes back to your comic, and it's like there's a gap here in the story. What am I missing? You know, it's difficult unless you're used to doing it, to follow along with some of the storylines.
It is, especially when they reference other comics and other characters come in. And then anytime you have a new artist or new writer, they develop new powers, new problems. Right. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. But is it? Yeah, that's it. If I had to recommend a comic series that I didn't bring in today, actually, I don't know why, to read besides the New 52, it would be Batman R.I.P. And then the follow-up to that series, which was called Chase for the Cow, where Bruce Wayne was... what do you call that? Presumed dead, and it was who's going to take over the mantle at the end of it. So that was a really good run of issues of comics.
Well, guys, I think that just about does it for this comic book collection issue. Sound off in the comments below what your favorite comics to read are, if you read comics at all. If you want us to do more of these, we'd love to hear
my Marvel collection.
We would love to hear your feedback. As always, a big shout out to our patrons because you guys help make this video possible. Here's our current guild heroes.
Ooh.
For the Adventurers Guild, I'm Steve.
Still Jesse.
And we will catch you next time.